The balcony kiss we didn't mean. The pearl didn't belong to us. It lay on my nightstand beside the book I pretend to be reading, and the coaster I never use, a single teardrop pearl with a delicate gold hook. Maya doesn't own pearls. She says they make her look like she's borrowing someone else's certainty. Her jewelry is all thin chains and modern angles, little pieces of lightning that wink against her collarbone. And yet there was this small, classic thing glinting in a sunbeam like it had been staged. Lost and found, I called toward the bathroom. The hairdryer cut off. Maya stepped out in a towel, steam ribboning around her, eyes flicking to the nightstand and away again. "Alexa's," she said. "She crashed here after we finished the seating chart. Must have slipped off." "Alexa from the theater?" I asked. Assistant event planner, tiny girl, voice like a trumpet. She kissed my cheek as if the pearl had already been explained. "Don't be late tonight. The Palmette needs bodies by 7 or the donors start counting chairs." The Palmette used to be a crumbling Art Deco cinema before the foundation rebuilt it into a theater that makes you forgive your own life for not being the movies. Maya had been living there for weeks, her phone pinging with miniature emergencies, table linens that photographed too blue, a florist who refused to speak in units smaller than cloud. I asked about the earring again, and she did that thing where she smiles in a way you shouldn't argue with, and I let it slide into the drawer with the spare batteries and expired membership cards. On the subway, the earring felt like a tiny weight in my pocket. I told myself I was carrying it so I could return it, not because I wanted to interrogate it under better light. When I came up into the late afternoon glare of Orchard Street, the sky had that polished look that makes even scaffolding seem deliberate. The Palmette's marquee hummed over a carpet of people standing the way thirsty people stand, with their heads lifted slightly as if the air might pour something better into them. Maya materialized at my elbow, clipboard under her arm like a weapon she'd learned to use gracefully. The slate dress she wore turned her into a line I was afraid to smudge. "You made it," she said, and for a second it was only us and the part of our history that still behaves. Then the choreographer found her. Adrian, black suit, softness around his smile like he kept his tenderness polished. He touched her wrist to pull her toward the photographer, and my mouth went dry for reasons the bar couldn't fix. "You must be Eli," a woman said behind me, voice smooth, warm, precise. I turned. She was a fraction taller than Maya, hair pinned in a way that looked accidental and definitely wasn't, eyes the kind that remember. A silk slip dress in midnight blue curled around her like smoke. "I must be," I said, "because charm is muscle memory you use when your dignity is busy." "Sienna," she said. "I'm the not-so-silent partner for the gala and the person who told Adrian rehearsal was over an hour ago. He doesn't hear stop if it arrives without applause." We both watched him angle Maya toward the step and repeat, his hand brief at her lower back. It was professional, maybe. It felt like the opposite of professional looks when the contract you sign has no paper. "How do you know I'm Eli?" I asked. "You have the only face here that looks like it walked in on the end of a scene," Sienna said. "Also, Maya pointed at you like a lighthouse when she thought nobody was looking." She offered a glass of something that smelled of peaches and decisions. We took our drinks to the mezzanine where the lobby swam below us. Donors and dancers, and an impossible number of people who had found the one flattering outfit they owned and would not be coaxed out of it under any circumstances. Sienna didn't make small talk. "You found an earring this morning." A breath snagged in my chest. "Is that a guess?" "That's a premonition that arrived late," she said. "Adrian's understudy, Alexa, is careless with jewelry and generous with her time. She has a signature pair of pearl drops, One always tries to escape. The pearl in my pocket might as well have been a tiny heated stone. Maya said Alexa stayed over. Because they worked late, Sienna said. She watched the crowd the way a lifeguard watches a lake. She wasn't lying. Sometimes the truth is just too short to cover the whole body. Below us, Adrian turned. His hand brushed Maya's arm as he laughed at something she said. The photographer loved them. The camera loves people who own it for reasons other than beauty. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Sienna's mouth tilted. "Because I prefer my dramas with subtitles, and because you look like a man who keeps his promises even after midnight." "That sounds like a compliment in a language I don't speak," I said. "You do," she said, and then soft, "Do you want air?" We stepped through the side door onto a balcony the size of a confession. The city unfurled around us, all scaffolds and courage. Somewhere up the block, a musician tested a trumpet against the evening, and the note found us and held for a breath too long. "What do you want from this?" Sienna asked. "I want to know whether I'm losing something or seeing it more clearly," I said. "And if the answer is both?" I looked down at the street where a food truck blinked its menu to nobody. "Then, I want to come away with a shape that fits in my hands." Sienna faced me slowly, the way a dancer squares to a partner she's not ready to touch. We were too close, obviously, but it felt less like trespass than like a new room I had permission to be curious about. Her perfume was not a smell so much as a temperature. "You're not the villain here," she said. "You don't know me," I said. "I know the way you're not moving," she said, and then she did it. She stepped closer so her dress brushed the front of my suit, and her palm, light as a question, landed at my sternum. "Tell me to stop if you're going to hate yourself." "I'm already in the habit," I said, and I meant for it to land as a joke. It didn't. She kissed me. It wasn't cinematic or clumsy. It was a precise, steady pressure that asked for nothing except to be remembered accurately. Her lips were cool from the air, warm a second later, and then we found a shared pace, the way people sometimes find a shared step on a crowded staircase. My hand lifted, instinct, not vanity, and settled at her waist as if that had been negotiated ahead of time. We didn't deepen it. We didn't stage it. We held it just long enough to say we had, and then Sienna let me go like she was placing something delicate on a table. "We didn't mean that," she said. "We did," I said. "We just didn't mean to admit it." She smiled in a way that said I had purchased an honesty she approved of. "I'm not here to collect men," she said. "I'm here to keep the building from catching fire. Sometimes those overlap." We went back inside. My mouth felt like it had learned a new word. The gala carried on auctions, speeches, the intermission where donors compare their philanthropy like vacation photos. On stage, the company previewed a piece from their upcoming season, bodies moving through the kind of logic my own clumsy bones envy. Maya stood at the edge of the curtain with a headset, coordinating the quiet parts. Twice she looked toward the mezzanine and found me. Twice her face did nothing readable. Twice, mine learned how to be stone. I left before the second act. I texted Maya a heart, then deleted it, then sent "I'm heading home, break a leg like a well-behaved husband on television." On the sidewalk, the night felt warmer than the day had any right to be. The food truck had acquired a line of people rehearsing their new selves into their mouths. I almost kept walking. Instead, I stood under the lamplight and pulled the pearl from my pocket. "Don't throw it out," Sienna said. She was there as if the night had decided I hadn't had enough bravery yet. She held 2 paper cups, steam making halos. "Ginger tea," she said. "It makes sensible decisions feel less lonely." "You always stalk your not villains," I asked. Only the ones who look like they're about to do something interesting, she said. Did we ruin you? We, I said. Me and whatever you saw when you looked down from that mezzanine. The brain is a brutal replay artist. I'm not ruined, I said. I'm angled. She nodded like she liked that. Take the earring to Maya, she said. Ask for a story long enough to hold the facts. Ask for a story with room for your part. And my part is man who didn't run away, she said. Man who did not look for an excuse to be sloppy just because someone left a door open. You kissed me, I reminded her. I also stopped, she said. You're welcome. I went home. Maya came in after midnight, hair loosened by the night, eyes tired in a way that had nothing to do with mascara. She took off her heels like the floor was a friend. I placed the earring between us on the table the way a referee places a coin. Alexa's, she said, automatic. Is it? I asked. Maya sat. She put both palms on the table as if to prove she wasn't hiding anything in them. No, she said finally, quietly. It's mine. I bought a pair at a vintage place for the gala. I didn't keep them on. I tried them on here last week to see if I could be that woman, and I couldn't. I left one on the nightstand. I told you it was Alexa's because it felt easier to be a little wrong than a lot exposed. I waited. The silence between us was a wire. Adrian flirts like it's part of his warm-up, she said. He's good at making people feel framed correctly. I wanted to be framed correctly for a minute. That's all I've done. I'm not asking you to be proud of me. I'm asking you to believe me. I realized my knuckles were white against the edge of the table. I kissed someone on a balcony, I said. Sienna, once. We stopped. I'm not asking you to be proud. I'm asking you to believe me. Maya's eyes filled and didn't spill. She reached across and took my hand like it was attached to a past version of me she was determined not to lose. Do you want to try again? She asked. Like adults with better lighting. We didn't make a ceremony of it. We didn't make a bed into a courtroom. We put our phones in a drawer. We turned on the lamp with the shade that turns the room the color of apricots after a storm. We stood facing each other and remembered how to ask for things with our hands. The heat of her palm against the back of my neck felt like a forgiven word. The line of my mouth along her jaw felt like a path I was qualified to walk. We moved slowly, like careful thieves of our own doubts. Whatever we didn't say out loud rode the air between us and kept very, very quiet. After we lay tangled like the inside of a promise, Maya traced circles on my chest with one finger. No more half-truths, she whispered. If I get close to a ledge, I tell you. If you get invited to a balcony, you tell me. Okay, I said into her hair, but I get to hate Adrian on principle. That's your right as a citizen, she said, and a tiny laugh escaped her like a bird that realized the door is open. Morning came like a fair verdict. We made coffee with the normal clatter, and it felt radical that normal still existed. Maya went to a debrief at the theater. I carried the pearl across town to the vintage store where Maya had bought it, because closure is tidier when you add a receipt. I stood at the glass counter and watched a girl with a septum ring count change like it was choreography. You're returning a single earring, she asked. I'm returning an idea, I said. Is there store credit for those? Sometimes, she said, if you promise to spend it on something you might actually wear. I kept the earring in the end, not as a threat, as a softness. I put it back on my nightstand where it looks like a tiny moon that forgot to leave. On Wednesday nights now, Maya and I take walks without telling Instagram. We circle the block until the streetlights seem to be nodding us home. We stop by the river and trade stories long enough to hold the facts. We practice kissing like it's a language neither of us wants to lose fluency in, slow and attentive, nothing that would get us demonetized. I saw Sienna one more time in daylight, on the theater steps where the city pretends to rest. She wore a white t-shirt and a black skirt and a sense of proportion. We didn't touch. We smiled the way two conspirators smile when the heist was not money but nerve. "Good?" she asked. "Better," I said. "Tell your wife to give herself credit for a perfect event," she said. "And tell her I don't poach, I prune." "I'll tell her," I said. "Also," she added, glancing toward the rehearsal hall, "Adrian's moving on to a Grant panelist with a fondness for compliments. They deserve each other." "Do you ever get tired of being right?" I asked. "Often," she said, "but it pays for my dresses." We nodded like grown-ups and like something else, and then we went our separate directions, which is another kind of kiss if you let it be. At night, when I unload the dishwasher, I catch myself peering into glasses for evidence of someone else's life. Old habits limp. They don't sprint. But the kitchen has learned our names again. The couch curves around us like a question that doesn't require an answer. And sometimes, when the window is open and the city is breathing loud, I pull Maya close in the narrow space between the counter and the table and sway to music we make up as we go. Her breath against my neck, my hand at the small of her back, both of us remembering the balcony and choosing the room with the lamp instead.